And we told you we'll be bringing to you that live coverage. We'll be telling you all the events as and when they happen, when the son of the Queen of England, that's Queen Elizabeth, Prince Charles, is going to visit our country. He's starting a tour on a 4-day visit to Ghana, and the Prince of Wales, tipped to succeed the Queen, is expected to call on President Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House and later visit other places, including the Osu Castle, to discuss the future restoration and reuse of the castle, which served, as we all know, as the command post during the colonial rule era. And just from Saturday, he will visit the Asantehene at the Minsha Palace in Kumasi, where Deba will be held in his honor. But we also know that he will be, among other things, be visiting some cocoa farms and discussing sustainable practices on cocoa with some other business leaders. But look, our relationship with the United Kingdom, Great Britain, had been in the years several decades. And we also know that they were our colonial masters. It's not the first time, though, that the Prince of Wales is visiting our country. And he first visited our country when he was just a thriving young man, 1977. But look, this is what we have for you.
The royal visit to Ghana, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall, a celebration of Commonwealth ties between Ghana and Britain. Date 2nd to 6th November, live on JoyNews, on TV, radio and online.
Well, we know that he was given the title of the Duke of Cornwall, as well as the Duke of Rothesay, the Earl of Carrick, Baron of Renfrew, as well as the Lord of the Isle, and Prince and Great Steward of Scotland. Prince Charles attended Trinity College, Cambridge in 1967, where he read history, archaeology, and anthropology. You know, he's a man of many colors, has also held many events in the name of charity. He was also formally invested to the throne as the Prince of Wales in a ceremony at Carnarvon Castle in 1967. Now, Prince Charles became involved in many charities over the years. The charities were set up under his patronage, covering a range of areas, including education, young people, and the environment. Prince Charles married Lady Diana Spencer in July 29, 1981. Of course, we all know they got divorced in 1996. They had 2 children, 2 sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. On the 9th of April 2005, Prince Charles married Camilla Parker Bowles, who became the Duchess of Cornwall, and it's with her he will be visiting Ghana with. Well, who better than to discuss the pre-event activities with than the British High Commissioner to Ghana, Ian Walker. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good morning. Yeah, nice having you in the studio.
Thanks, good to be here.
Well, please watch this as well. And we all know we have a great package for you, live here on JoyNews.
The royal visit to Ghana, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall, a celebration of Commonwealth ties between Ghana and Britain. Date 2nd to 6th November, live on JoyNews, on TV, radio and online.
As my wife and I prepare to embark on our upcoming tour of the Gambia, Ghana and Nigeria, I did just want to take this opportunity to send you all our special greetings and to say just how much we are looking forward to meeting so many of you. This will be the first visit to the Gambia for us both, although we have heard so many wonderful things about the beauty of its natural environment and the resilience of its people. And we are especially pleased to be able to join you in celebrating the Gambia's re-entry into the Commonwealth earlier this year. I'm also delighted to be returning to Ghana, which I first visited more than 40 years ago, and to Nigeria, which I last visited 12 years ago. On this occasion, I'm so pleased to be introducing my wife to some of the places that I remember so well. The United Kingdom's relationships with the Gambia, Ghana, and Nigeria are firmly anchored in our shared history, but today are forward-looking partnerships that strengthen each of our societies and our economies. I need hardly say that my wife and I greatly look forward to celebrating with you these vital bonds between us as members of our remarkable Commonwealth family. There is, it seems to me, no greater demonstration of these ties than the dynamic Gambian, Ghanaian, and Nigerian diaspora, their communities which call the United Kingdom home, or at least one of their homes, and act as a bridge between our countries, across which travel the ideas, creativity, and talent that fuel our shared prosperity. It therefore gave my wife and myself the greatest possible pleasure to meet many members of these communities at a reception we held recently at St. James's Palace to celebrate their contribution to so many areas of our national life. Hearing such impressive things about the many ways in which people are working to strengthen the ties between our countries, and about how much it means to so many people that they are British Gambian, British Ghanaian, or British Nigerian, gave us both tremendous pride. As a result, we much look forward to meeting as many people as possible during our forthcoming visits, and bearing in mind the very special memories I have from 40 years ago, to re-experiencing the irresistible attractions of high life and Afro beats. It will therefore be a great joy for my wife and I to see you in Banjul, Accra, Kumasi, Abuja, or Lagos very soon. And we know that we will bring back with us a host of special memories that will stay with us always.
Well, and he will be arriving in Accra just today, and we know that he's already been to those two countries, Banjul, talking about the Gambia, been to Abuja, Nigeria, and climaxing all other visits to Africa with a visit to Accra, Ghana. And we told you earlier what he will be doing among a number of things when he's here. But Ian Walker is here. Ian Walker is the British High Commissioner. Good morning to you again, once again. And it's always a delight. But we've had an illustrious history, wouldn't you say? And a history that has also ensured that we've smoothened our relationships.
Yeah, look, I think the relationship between the UK and Ghana is strong. I think we've got a long history, we've got a shared history. I think there are parts of our history which are not such a happy time, and we should absolutely embrace that and learn from it. But I think understanding our history is the first thing we should do. Secondly, we ought not to live in the past. We've really got to focus on the future. And I think this visit is going to do exactly that. I am absolutely thrilled that they are coming. You just heard from the Prince of Wales himself. He said it better than I could. But I think what we're trying to do, and what he's hoping to achieve whilst here, is to really reset, to re-energise the relationship between our countries, and to focus on the things that we know matter to people in Ghana, and the things that we know matter to us. And let's forge and take a big step forward in many of those areas.
And just 2 days ago, I was just reviewing some literature before I come to have this encounter with you. And it was about an article that you wrote, and also a speech that you also gave about why we need to look forward, not to the past, but rather to the present in terms of our relationships. And in there, you talked about how important it is that because of the way the world was changing, we also needed to strengthen the mutual cooperation for economic benefits.
Yeah. Well, so I think oftentimes we can talk about things that make us different. And there are many things that make people around the world different, and we should celebrate that diversity. But we shouldn't talk about those differences as being problems, because actually so many subjects that we work on are things that we really have in common. We don't disagree on an awful lot of things, actually. So in the case of creating jobs, creating growth, prosperity, we really believe in that, not as an act of charity, but because we really think it's in Ghana's interests and the UK's interests that our countries remain strong. So we've done a lot on the economic side, and we'll continue to make that our main efforts. But beyond that, the strongest link we have between our countries is between our people. There are 250,000 people of Ghanaian descent living in the UK. I've said before, my own grandfather used to work in Ghana back in the 30s. My wife's grandfather used to spend time here in Ghana as a visiting professor. I've got school friends who are Ghanaian from when I was at junior school. I say that not to be about me, but just the length and breadth of those connections are huge. Yeah. So I think when you look to the future, you say, well, how do we strengthen that? How do we make it even stronger? Whether that's across areas of sustainability, areas of plastic consumption, areas really around making sure that we, as I said, not just understand our history today, but make sure future generations can understand that, and then we can take that forward. So and
there are always platforms and mediums by which we can always do that, because indeed, it's all placed within the Commonwealth, would you say?
Sure.
If you look at just about a year or two ago, the movie Victoria and Abdul, talking about the young Abdul Karim from India who had been asked to come and serve the Queen, and subsequently Queen Victoria just got a certain liking to him. It was a very surreal moment if you tend to look at that sort of history. But that also puts all our conversations about our relationship with the British in a better perspective of the Commonwealth. And you say that we can harness that for greater potential.
I think so. I think that if you think that the language of business is English, the way that we conduct our lives subject to the rule of law, subject to the context within a democracy. Those things slip off the tongue easily as if they're small things. These are big things, so therefore we should be leaning into that. It surprises me. When I took up my job here as High Commissioner, before I started, some people would say to me, Ghana, and as if it was far away. It's 6-hour flights away between the UK and Ghana. It's nothing. So we've got to, I think, break down, first of all, the perceptions of distance, break down many of the perceptions of difference, celebrate really what we have in common, and then build on that, and build on that strongly. And I think that's what I hope we'll be seeing in the coming days with the royal visit. We'll be showing the Royal Highnesses so much of what is good about Ghana, so many of the priorities for the people of Ghana, and I hope we will really build that relationship and make it stronger for the future. And we've got work to do, and we should get on with it.
In terms of making sure that while we also build the mutual relationship or the cooperation, we're also ensure that as perhaps former colonies, now independent states and countries that need to thrive, we also need to develop our own. How can we complement that by perhaps getting more from the UK?
Look, I agree. So, I think you said in your introduction about former colonial masters. I never use that expression. I always say we are a partnership of equals. Ghana has been independent since 1957. It's a confident, ambitious, thriving country. Clearly, it has big ambitions for the year ahead. I think that what Friends do is lean into support. So how do we do that? How do we use the construct of the Commonwealth as well to make that better? Well, there's some practical things, things such as the UK has been increasing things like credit cover to make sure that UK export finance helps companies looking to export. We've got people like CDC, we've put billions of pounds, billions into development finance to try and make it easier for companies to come and land and invest in Ghana, and equally help Ghanaian companies lean in and invest in the UK and trade with the UK. But the UK is the destination for so much of Ghana's product and produce. We want to make that grow. So the ambition for free trade, this is why I say there's no theological barrier, there's no disagreement in principle. The question is, how do we turn those words into even greater action? And that's the combined effort that we're working on together, I should say, between the UK government and the Ghanaian government, have been now for many months since I've been here, and it's our main effort as we go forward.
Yeah, and it's good that you mentioned the Ghanaian government, because related to the president, as the head of the government of our republic, has been going around. Some people will say it's a rhetoric, but making sure that the agenda is Ghana beyond aid, so that we win ourselves of the dependence, etc., but also develop in a more cooperative manner. Yeah. How is that achievable if you look at the scheme of things around the world?
So I think it is achievable, and it has to be achievable. Ghana, in my mind, absolutely can and should be looking to move beyond aid. And I think when I hear the President talk about Ghana beyond aid, there are two parts to it. One is about a kind of mindset, about saying we want to create that entrepreneurial spirit, the sense that Ghana has the ability, the competence to stand on its own 2 feet economically. I don't doubt that for a minute. The second is the kind of time frame over which that is then possible, and the steps that are being put in place. And I think you're seeing it with many, actually, not just the UK, with many international actors keen to work with Ghana to make that happen. We live in a global world. We should be working as a global community. So seeing other investors coming in, as well as British investors, I think is a good thing for Ghana. So it really all comes down to kind of jobs at the end of the day, making sure there are jobs, making sure that the economy is growing across a broad range of sectors. We can see that's what the government's trying to do, and we're keen to help and to lean into that.
Now, we saw the Prime Minister coming in on the continent earlier, Margaret, and more so, we now have the Prince coming in. And it signifies the sort of history that we will share and continue to share because of the ties. But we also know in your country, many things are going on in the UK about Brexit and also if it is just a normal company, you say you're searching for new markets or consolidating already what you have. How would that then benefit us or benefit the two of us in the first place? Knowing that Brexit will go off, you'll be weaned off the European Union, and you have to concentrate on the market that the World Bank and everybody says could be the emerging, so to speak. So
I think that the world is always changing, but it does seem we're at a kind of an interesting moment in world affairs. And for the UK, Brexit is a very big deal. I often say to people here that when Ghana talks about Ghana beyond aid, often it's the UK beyond the EU. Both countries are changing, so it's how do we kind of make sure that we reflect that in how we are focusing on our priorities. So in the case of the UK to Ghana, we have in the last 15 years spent £2 billion through DFID, predominantly in the health sectors and education sectors and the social sectors. And we hope that that has been a contributory factor to enabling Ghana to now to be able to actively think about moving beyond aid. But clearly, as we now move beyond aid, the question is how do we change that relationship so that we're doing more to bring in more private sector partners, bring in more companies to invest and enable more opportunities back into the UK. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to move on to. And in terms of the UK, we're still in the middle of negotiations with the EU in Brussels. Brexit will be happening by the end of March. What does that mean for Ghana? Well, I think there has been, the UK's always been a kind of it's the 5th largest economy in the world. I hope we're never arrogant, but I think we are sufficiently confident. That means that we are a global trading nation. We always have been, we always will be. We take our role on the Security Council at the UN seriously, and we will do for many years in the future. So I think what I'm saying is that we support the rules-based international system. We support countries like Ghana and many others around the world to work in partnership with them. So I think it could be a very positive thing for Ghana. But let's see, the next few months are key in our Brexit negotiations. I anticipate really our continual focus on the outside world will remain strong, arguably stronger than it's ever been before.
Forget about what the other literature will say, but what's it in your books? What's the trade volume between Ghana and the UK?
So 1.3 billion between the UK and Ghana.
$1.3 billion dollars
per year between the UK and Ghana, which makes. So I think there's a couple of things in that. One is it's big, but I think it should be bigger. I mean, I think when you look at sectors such as pharmaceuticals, petrochemicals, garments and textiles, we could be and we should be doing a lot more, firstly. I think secondly, the balance between that trade. We'd like to see more Ghanaian companies selling into the UK. So companies like Blue Skies, companies like Golden Exotics rather, they're doing a lot of good stuff. How do we learn from those companies and do more? They're selling, if you go in the UK to Sainsbury's, to Waitrose, those kind of companies, and you buy fruit, you are buying it from Ghana, and not just fruit cut, you're buying processed fruits.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it proves we can do that, but we also know that other companies are having challenges meeting regulatory requirements.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is the challenge, I think. How do we bring together development efforts with private sector people who are already doing it well, and make sure that we can make this flourish, because we want that to happen. There's no question about that.
Because yesterday I was just speaking to somebody at the Association of Ghana Industries who trades with the UK with this company. He has 2 companies, and he was saying that fantastic. Many Ghanaian companies trading with the UK get a lot of dividends at the end of the day. But there seem to be, just within that 1.3 billion, a lot of deficits. So how do we check or perhaps breach the imbalances, or try to just make sure that we're closer to inching?
Well, I'd say, again, it's 2 things to that. So firstly, there's a structural question for me about an organisational way of how do we get our governments to work together to really focus on the priorities, so that we don't have many, many conversations, but have one. And to that end, we've created what we call the UK-Ghana Business Council. It met for the first time a month ago, involving the Vice President, Finance Minister, Trade Minister, Planning Minister, and from our side, we had 4 of our own ministers there. So we have an institutional framework to address those very questions. For me, though, I would say that we should focus on the strong points. Often we look at the weaknesses, instead we should look at the strengths.
Yeah.
We know that in the examples of garments and textiles, there is a very good garments and textiles industry here. We know that there is a market for that in the UK. We've talked about the diaspora. There's many more people than that would be buying Ghanaian products and African prints and ties and such like. I think we've got to try and find a way of encouraging people to feel less fearful of selling that into the UK, so make that pathway simpler.
Exactly.
And also make sure that we help those companies that are trying to do that, both in terms of perhaps in marketing or perhaps addressing some of the regulatory requirements. But I think what we're trying to do is, as I said, get the institutional framework right, pick those priorities, in that example textiles, and let's double down on it and make a difference. Similarly, I think on pharmaceuticals, similarly in petrochemicals, similarly on infrastructure. I think there's a big opportunity for UK and Ghanaian companies to be working much more closely, to be using the UK's commitment to development finance, and make sure that we invest that in some of the longer term projects here.
And we're hoping that summit will come on. 50 companies from both sides, and perhaps we can dialogue better, knowing that across the board you have in the UK 250,000 Ghanaians and those of Ghanaian descent living there. But if we have to say that, then the visit of the Prince looks to be the icing on the cake, knowing that it looks like a new way we want to step up, build and consolidate the existing relationship. That is it.
I think I put it a different way. So I put it, if you think of it as a stick of rock, I think it's our values that go to the middle of that stick of rock. It's not just about trade deals, it's not just about any of these individual things. I think it's about our values that make us it's why the UK is an attractive place for many Ghanaians to go. It's why Ghana is such an attractive place for many Brits. It's our common values. And I said that sounds often easy to say, but it's the basis of everything. And I think therefore this trip, less than being the icing on the cake, is actually focusing on the fundamentals. The fundamentals are about people-to-people relationships, understanding each other, respecting each other, recognising that actually the strength comes from an equal partnership, not in a sense of any parent-child equals. We say that, we mean it, and that really is why, when the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall go to Kumasi, it will be a full celebration of the culture up in Ashanti. It will be understanding the way cocoa is managed, some of the things that are going well, some of the challenges. So I think, let's make sure that we keep this visit focused on the fundamentals. And I think if we can keep these strengths firmly in place, it gives us a tremendous platform to build the future that you're touching on and that we want to make happen.
What's the expectation from your side? I mean, the Prince is coming, we're happy. We also know that he's heir to the throne. Could be next seated there, we'll be watching him and all that. But from our side, we know perhaps we see it's just very ceremonial and just steeped in history. But from your side, what do you see?
Well, you're right. The Prince of Wales is the heir to the throne. He's also the most senior travelling royal. Her Majesty the Queen has much less long-haul travel now by virtue of age. So he is the most senior travelling royal. The fact that he's coming here for 4 days and 4 nights, I think signifies the importance he puts in Ghana, the important role that Ghana plays within the Commonwealth. And the focus that we really have on, as I said, issues of sustainability, issues of the diaspora and how we kind of accelerate, energise the diaspora to make sure that they are the ones who play a key role in the strengthening of our relationship in the future. And that we also look to celebrate and to promote those areas that we care most about. And if that's on cocoa, if that is on, as I said, sustainability, if that's on the people-to-people links, let's bring that out. But I hope you will see many surprises during this trip. People to me certainly talk about 1977, who were here, who were part of that trip, and talk about it like it was yesterday, and the importance of those kind of moments. I hope we create many, many more moments like that in the coming days.
Well, and some of the schedules that he'll be going through in terms of where he'll be going through, which ones do you think will be some of the notable highlights, so to speak, beyond just Menchia and Kumasi?
Well, it truly is. We've truly kind of packed a schedule, so I hope he comes rested. But we want to present Ghana in a different light. I think it's worth remembering we'll be bringing a very large media pack with the Royals, which means it will be presenting Ghana in a very to a very different audience, perhaps, than often looks at Ghana. So we want to be showing the dynamic Ghana that we know exists here, and some of the forward-looking part of Ghana. So some of the locations we'll be taking the Royal Highnesses to, maybe slightly less traditional than people might expect. But I think let's watch and see where we take them. But I hope it should be bringing across the vibrancy, I think, of what's happening here just now.
Yeah, and viewers, a good thing about it is that the Prince of Wales also will be marking just a bit of his birthday and marking it all around here before he gets to England. Look, we should be happy for that.
Yeah, it's true. 70th birthday, it's a big milestone.
Yeah, it is. It is for anybody on earth.
Yeah.
But look, we share a lot of things. We watch the English Premiership. It's always the highlights on our television screens, etc. So we're tight on many angles. Just a bit of using an undiplomatic language, so to speak,
true.
very informal. But what would be the lasting memories we should have?
Well, do you know, I'm minded not to answer that. I'm minded to let's see, and then let's come back and talk about that in a few days' time. But for me, I think there are some huge highlights. Clearly, you know, meeting the president and the state welcome will be really exciting. I think some of our focus down in Jamestown will be exciting. Some of our focus up in Kumasi, I'm very much looking forward to. But for me, it's the overall. It's actually a kind of, as I said, a more fundamental view than that. It's positioning, it's displaying Ghana and resetting what the UK thinks of Ghana and what Ghana thinks of the UK. Our history matters, but this is really all about what we want to take forward into the future. So I think it will be, I hope it will form part of an iconic visit that will really kind of reset in people's minds what they think of the UK and what people in the UK think of Ghana, and create more bridges for the opportunities that you've touched on already.
Well, we told you, we're bringing to you a comprehensive package, a comprehensive preview, but also coverage of the visits of the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall, as the wife, when they visit or touch down in Ghana. And you just heard from the British High Commissioner to Ghana, Ian Walker. Thanks for joining me. It's been a delight having you.
Pleasure.
And we're continuing all that. We're bringing you an excerpt of Ambassador Agriolin's Ghanaian diplomat talking about the Ghana-UK relations and its significance in the Commonwealth.
My personal connection with the United Kingdom may be said to have started when I was at university, and we had a gap year in France. I read French, and then for every citizen of the Commonwealth, UK was a metropolis. And remember that for most of our people who lived in the UK at the time, they were actually equipped with not just Gold Coast passports, but British passports. We had only become independent in 1957. And my first visit to the UK was in 1959. And therefore, it was one of great emotional satisfaction. Well, they say in my part of Cape Coast, Brinyanya John, our overseas trips took place in the UK. Remember that for years in the past, only a trickle of people had gone to the United States, like our first, some of our senior citizens, exemplified by Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who went to study there, and several others. But that belongs to another story. So this is as far back as I go when it comes to my relation, my, shall I say, contact with London. London. I took an interest in the UK, personally. It was my predilection. It was my destination even for tourism. But I used that opportunity to study. As you must have noticed, I studied also in Oxford. And this is, again, a dimension of my experience and relationship with the UK. Now you ask me the question, how do I evaluate and assess Ghana's relations with the UK? It's historical. It started with colonial relations, and it has never left us. It is something embedded in our historical, political, economic, social, and literally the concept of the Commonwealth. We were born into the Commonwealth. It has been a historical, cultural cross-fertilization, or let me put it another way, miscegenation. The Commonwealth has become almost like an informal, functional axis of cooperation. We cannot say that we are compelled in that relationship. We are all equal within the Commonwealth. And if there is any attempt, or there was any attempt by Britain to compel any member of the Commonwealth, as I can cite to you, to influence things within the Commonwealth, it has become a persistent problem.
Well, that's Ambassador Agriolins there. But that'll be it for now. We're taking a break. When we come back, we'll bring you all the best entertainment highlights that will steer you into the weekend on AM Showbiz. Stay with us.